Whatever you feel.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. Monday, January the 9th, 2023. Happy New Year. I'm going to call to order this regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. Trustee Darfler is en route. He should be here in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I expect. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I would move on to item number 3, which is our consent agenda, which includes meeting minutes from our only December meeting, December 12th, as well as our abstract of claims, which includes a general fund abstract totaling $201,328.22. An EMS billing abstract totaling $20,760.29. Water fund totaling $39,744.01. Sewer fund abstract totaling $23,170.80. And the trust and agency abstract totaling $4,911.84. And I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second a couple of items in the agenda. Or in the
Minutes. Okay. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, then all in favor of adopting the consent agenda as edited, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 4 is our first public comment period. There is no one present in person from the public. Online, it looks like. David, did you have anything you wanted to comment on? If you do, let me know during the second comment period. You're just in time. Oh, yes. Well, it is our first public comment period. So if you were intending to comment on anything, this would be yes, we're 6 minutes ahead of schedule for the first time all year, but then it is a new year. So
It's the first time of the year.
Exactly. First and only time, most likely.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Thank you. My name is Vivian Rose. I reside at 114 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I'm here today to ask that you consider 3 different things and to ask a question.
Okay.
So can you hear me? Is this good?
Yeah, can you raise, if you're gonna, you can sit if you'd like, but if you're gonna stand, I'll just have Tammy raise that microphone and stand up a little
Oh,
bit.
it's just that
So we can pick
the
up.
rules on the back say if you're speaking, you stand. You know, I'm trying to do it by the book.
Get up here and be quiet. It'll be just fine.
How's that? Thank you. You're adorable.
You good?
Let me just say the first thing. She's adorable.
Great.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna move this over here so I can see all of you all. The first thing that I'd like to do is let you know that Women's History Month is in March. Coming up, it's usually declared by the president. There is a congressional resolution that happens every year, has been since 1987. This year, the theme is celebrating women who tell our stories. And it encourages recognition of women past and present. This is quoting from National Women's History Alliance, which created National Women's History Month. recognition of women, past and present, who have been active in all forms of media and storytelling, including print, radio, TV, stage, screen, blogs, podcasts, news, and social media. This timely theme honors women in every community who have devoted their lives and talents to producing arts, news, pursuing truth, and reflecting society's concerns decade after decade. So I'm kind of a advocate for women's history, since that's my background and my former profession. And my two requests have to do with Women's History Month upcoming. The first one is, I would very much like to propose a resolution declaring National Women's History Month in Trumansburg specifically. There will be events that are occurring. I'm aware of at the Conservatory of Fine Arts, and I believe the library is also planning things. I think the History Museum may. I'm not sure what they're doing at the school, because usually that's covered by the teachers. But if you're not aware, you probably are. Lydia Sears was the author of Trumansburg's history. She was also instrumental in the reestablishment of the Ulysses Philomathic Library as an active entity in our community, and of the creation of the Historical Museum. And here's her picture. Everybody, I don't know if you can see that from so far away, but there she is. She passed away in 1978. One of the earliest of her articles was published of her reminiscences of her first time in Trumansburg at age 5, and her walk through downtown with her grandpa. So I would like to propose that the village of Trumansburg honor Lydia Sears in particular this year during Women's History Month. And if okay, I'd like to draft a resolution for board mayor to designate Women's History Month as Lydia Sears Month in Trumansburg, or week or day or whatever is appropriate. And in relation to that, I'd like to, I'm aware that there is a flag policy, and that the flag policy says that official flags, including the women's suffrage flag, can be flown on village poles and halyards if already approved or by petition to the board. And that women's suffrage flag is already approved for flying in March. But as you know, I'm a stickler for detail. Page 2 of this policy, number 12, says the locations where flags may be displayed on village-owned property include the following locations. A, the front porch of Village Hall, 56 East Main Street, Trumansburg. So I'm curious to know, is the flagpole in the little island between Rondon's and Main Street village property? And is the flagpole in the village park, village property?
It is.
So would it be possible to amend this to allow the women's suffrage flag to be flown from the flagpole of the village flagpole in the village park, which is very visible from the street, as part of Lydia Sears Memorial Month? Or in general, is that something you would want to do? Because right now the US flag is flying at half staff in the village park. I'm not sure why it's at half staff. It's been that way for months. Seems like long time, weeks. Tammy's nodding her head. Do you know? Can I ask?
I asked Justin about it right before Christmas, and I think his response was, you know what, the last time I was, it was still happening.
For Ukraine? Okay.
That I asked him too. And I found it, and he said there was somebody like that, yeah, from somewhere, but
Hmm,
it was so we get an alert. Whenever the flag is.
sure, I understand.
It's becoming more and more common, there's gonna be something we've never done. Kind of rare.
Very rare.
And right.
Yeah.
They never even-
Yeah, I was the chief of visitor services at the national park, so I'm familiar with who can say when a flag can go up and down, and that the governor can do that for a New York resident who's injured or killed in
Right.
duty anywhere. So, but I wondered about that because they usually do go back up,
Right.
not
Well, I
stay.
think it's one idea.
So the resolution or the flag?
Oh.
Okay, all right. Hmm,
I don't think there's an issue with the location because it's actually. I don't actually recall why we limited it to the front porch.
I was hoping you would remember because it was adopted in July of 2020, so it's
Yeah, this was
relatively,
this was pretty
Recent.
carefully parsed when we wrote this in
Yeah.
2020.
Mhm.
I don't expect we will be amending it. Anytime soon, except possibly that location, because items. 3 and 4. Would seem to indicate that other village locations would be acceptable,
This
so.
is why I raised the question. Because I wasn't sure what the other village locations were, given that it defines only one.
Right,
Under
well,
number
there's the one out here in front of the police station, there's
Ah.
the fire hall.
Okay.
I don't recall if there's a flag down at the sewer plant.
Hmm,
Um,
hmm.
But the village can certainly put up a flagpole anytime it wants on any piece of village property, so. Yeah, let me take a look at that location piece, number 12.
Okay. How would you want to receive a resolution?
Email is best.
Okay. And would that need to be drafted by anyone in particular, or could I do that?
If you would like to draft a resolution for consideration, please do.
I would very much like to talk with the village historian and the town historian before I
Sure.
go forward with that, but.
Okay.
And also related to that, I have a question about the events that are already scheduled and will occur in Trumansburg. Is it possible for the events committee to publicize those? I'm not sure that any other help will be needed because each organization is doing what they're doing.
Sure. Then we can put anything the village is involved with, certainly we can put on the website.
Okay, all right. Well, should those who've been talking about this have any other brainstorms, like other people who could be honored or exhibits in stores or whatever, definitely I would come back and visit with you. The event that is on March 11th, scheduled for March 11th at TCFA is not on their calendar yet, so I don't want to say anything more about that because that really belongs to that organization beyond that. I know it's scheduled and there will be something else also scheduled in March. So those are the first two things. And the third one is, thank you all for reading my emails and listening to me about the noise ordinance. It remains a concern for me that I don't feel like I can go to the farmer's market because it's too loud for me to be able to shop. And one of the I recently took the Siena College Public Health poll that's being done for New York State Department of Public Health. And two of the questions were, can you buy your groceries within 15-minute walk of your home? And can you access services like banks, mail, local government, et cetera, within 15 minutes walk of your home? And I answered both of those questions, yes, because I can. It's something that's really beautiful about this community. that you can walk to what you need and you can see the people who you care about just walking around. It's one of the reasons I came back here. So I don't want to tell you that I'm not going to be concerned about the noise ordinance, but I also have a life. And I've spent a lot of time researching options for making sure that noise doesn't impact my ability to walk through public life here, which is what I think the existing ordinance is intending to do. So to go back to what I said at the beginning, thank you so much for your responses and for your concern. Ben Darfler's not here. I wanted to specifically thank him for his response. And if there's anything I can do to assist you with letting people like me go to the farmer's market or go to a village celebration and not have to leave because I'm physically ill from how loud it is, I'm here to serve. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Ben.
Thank you.
Vivian, Ben's walking in right now, so you can.
Well, there he is. Well, Mr. Darkler, thank you.
And you too. Let's get a chair somewhere. Order another company chair.
Thank you.
Are these, Tammy, are these the chairs we got from the town? Why don't we order a couple extra? Why don't we order a couple extra? He's sitting in the.
I would give up my big chair for you.
I can't do that.
What's that? You think that chair? You think that chair will hold? Okay, moving along, item number 5, reports from representatives, and is on with us via Zoom.
Hi, everybody. So a couple of updates. Let's see, we voted in our new chair of the legislature when we convened last week. And so the new chair of our legislature is, we re-elected Shauna Black, and the vice chair is new, and that's Dan Klein. We don't have our committee assignments yet. That'll be coming later this month, so I'll update you about that later. We finally finished most of our work on the recovery grants that we were offering to the community. And one in particular for this area has to do with the INHS affordable housing Village Grove property or project that they'll be, I think, breaking ground on this spring. And it was $200,000 towards the building of the preschool there. And let's see what else. I have a sales tax report. I know you guys don't always want that, but I have that if you want it. We are doing some work with the city, trying to coordinate, trying to figure out how to clean up and how to help the people more. What's in the homeless encampments along the inlet down in Ithaca, frequently referred to as the jungle. That will be ongoing. It's very difficult to figure out. We've actually been talking with them for a couple of years on that. So but it's kind of coming to a head where I think we're hopefully in line to do something soon to help the city deal with that. We had gone back and forth, and I can't remember if I had announced this for assessment values for the community. I think I might have mentioned a couple of months ago, we thought about going to a percentage of an assessment versus 100% assessment, which we do now. So we had gone back and forth, but we decided, or our assessment department decided, that they're going to stick with using 100% assessment value for properties to avoid confusion for people. And we're putting out some information, some press about our combination or our combining our mental health and our public health departments. So you might see some of that going out. And what we're calling it is our whole health department. And for those of you who hadn't heard about it before, some of the reasons for doing that are to help coordinate services, because people don't just have a mental health issue and, separately something to do with their physical health or need other services such as WIC or something else. So we're trying to combine it so that people, kind of almost like one stop, so that people can be referred easier to different services. And it's also to try and alleviate the stigma that has been there for many years regarding mental health services. And so those are the main things I wanted just to point out for today.
Thanks, Ann. Do you have those sales tax numbers handy?
Yes. Okay. This is for, do you want me to read them off?
Please.
So this was October, and that we have the latest stats for. So for the county, we were still up, and that was 11.27% from last October. And for year to date, that was up 8%. So that was for the county. For the smaller municipal portion of that, it was up. Oh, it's the same figure. It's not. Oh, no, I'm sorry. A lot of lines in here. For municipalities, it was up 9.99% for October compared to last year. And for year to date, it was up 3.16%. And we're starting, our finance department thinks it's starting to level out, where we were seeing quite a few increases the past 2 years. Or I'm sorry, the past year, really. And so we think it's leveling out to possibly pre-COVID levels. And we're hearing a lot of different stuff about a recession. We haven't seen indicators so far of the numbers that we have, but we're trying to be fiscally, cautious. And hopefully the numbers won't decrease.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for Ann? Okay, thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other representatives, we'll move on to item number 6, which is reports from this board and front office. The only item I have outside of executive session is a renewal agreement, which is in the Dropbox, a renewal agreement for services from our village attorney for the calendar year 2023. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a peek at it. It's verbatim from last year. And so I would entertain a motion, and certainly if there are questions we can ask, but I would entertain a motion to authorize my signing the agreement for legal representation with our existing attorney for the calendar year 2023. So second. A motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Certainly think the guy has done a good job for the village over the past several years, and happy that he's willing to continue. So if there are no other comments or questions, then all those in favor of authorizing my signing the agreement for legal representation with Guy Crow of Thaler and Thaler, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Okay, so that's it for me for January. Fire and Trumansburg Chamber.
Okay, fire. I'll first start with saying what an amazing job they did for festival, and they did 107, they delivered 171 buses, most they ever have since they started doing this. And they got tons of letters from people that they read at the meetings saying how happy they were with what they did, and the amount of time these volunteers put in is really unbelievable. So the fact that that program is still going and up and running, and they spend hours and hours doing that, it's really wonderful. And one thing that got me too was we got a letter from a family that had rented an Airbnb in the village during Christmas. And they were absolutely blown away by our community. They were blown away with the fact that their kids could run out front, and there was a fire truck there, and Santa delivered presents to the kids across the street. And of course, they had extra presents on the truck, so the little kids got, you know, a car or a toy or something. So they just gave us a great review about the community, and, you know, just the sense of community that they got from just staying here. So that was a really cool letter to have. As far as business goes, the thermal imaging cameras that they have right now are 21 years old, and they would like to replace those. So I need a permissive referendum to approve $10,000. I think each one of the cameras run about $5,000. To approve $10,000 to come out of the reserve equipment line. I think there's like $30,966 in there. So I would like approval for that.
So you're moving that?
Yeah,
Do
I'm
we have-
doing that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions?
I think it's the reserve. I think it's the small equipment, yes.
Any other questions or comments on the permissive referendum resolution? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so Vicky will coordinate with Matt on the time.
I did.
Thank you.
We also got approved for a DEC grant for equipment. It was a matching grant. So we have to match $2,845. So I need a permissive referendum to approve the $2,845 for that matching equipment grant from the DEC. That will also come out of that.
What's the
fund.
equipment that's being purchased with it?
I think it's like repelling equipment or something like that. I'm not quite sure actually.
What's the deadline on the grant?
I think like within the next couple of weeks. Want me to
Okay.
just reach out to Matt and find out exactly what they're
Yeah, if
doing
you
with that?
could, that would be cleaner.
I
Okay,
can do that tomorrow.
okay,
If I have to do it,
okay.
it's easier if I.
So it's for $2,845 and it's the DEC wildlife grant.
I'm gonna reiterate to Matt that he can't do anything for 30 days.
All right,
That's what the permits are, 30 days.
yeah, I think he wanted it done within.
Okay.
So you're
Yes.
moving, that, Marsh?
Yes, please.
Do we have a second? Second. Any other questions or comments on it? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
$2,845.
Okay. Back to you, Marsh.
And that is pretty much, they bought parts for that porta tank that died, it ended up not being a lot of money. So they can just fix that, and they won't be getting another one on another truck, so it doesn't matter. It's not a requirement. And they're working on putting together the fire truck that they're gonna order.
Okay.
The one that's the 3 years out.
Right.
Said had we done it last year, it would have been $126,000 cheaper.
Believe it.
I know, with all the service delays and everything. Oh, wow, what you gonna do?
Okay, any questions from Marcia on fire? Anything from the chamber?
I did go to the chamber thing over Christmas down at New Park, very nice. It was sparsely attended, but we had some great conversation and got to meet a lot of business owners. Once again, saying that tourism was their big thing this year, saying that they were really happy with the out of town business that they got. So,
I'm not sure if you received an email, but there's a written thing for the new location of the Chamber of Commerce meeting.
oh, I did not get.
Okay.
Okay, good. Next up is EMS Youth and Street Tree Advisory. Ben, can you turn on your mic? Oh, yeah.
So I don't have much. Youth Commission is still looking for a new program manager. We published it. We discussed the idea of either increasing the wages, decreasing the educational requirements. So right now, I believe it requires a master's and it's somewhere in the $18 an hour range, which is just impractical in my mind. Those two things don't go together. There's some kind of buildup. I think our relationship with TCE has been really great with the Youth Commission. That's how we funded the program manager position and allowed them to have benefits without having to put that bill entirely through the village and town. But this is definitely one of the hurdles of that relationship, is that they have established criteria for their job descriptions and different levels. It's apparently fairly inflexible. So that's an ongoing frustration. But there were a couple applicants, which only surprises me, but we'll see. I think we're going to republish extend the deadline. Hope we get more on that front. I just submitted the annual application for Tree City status, which means we can get another flag. I started taking this on 5 years ago, I think, maybe. I forget if it's number 6. Yeah. And the initial intent was so that we would get points on a grant application that was going to be filed sort of independently of us, and we were just kind of enabling that. And I think we may, or I may be getting into a desperation point where I may just go do that grant application myself. But it's a little bit of a catch-22 because the committee has basically done what the grant was for. The grant was to do an inventory of those trees. We've been doing that, so it's not to that standard. Anyway, that application has been filed. And then for EMS, I don't have much aside from what Vicky has the lease under her report and all that. Her good for that. And then we have some executive session stuff. But I did want to read the report. Usually I sort of just glance through this. But this last month there were 103 calls. So I thought I'd just read them through so that it's broken out by municipality. So you'll sort of see what I'm after here, I think. But so 1 in the city of Ithaca, 1 in the town of Lansing, 1 in Lodi, 1 in Odessa, 1 in Ovid, Fair. 2 in Enfield, 2 in Ovid, 4 in the town of Ithaca, 5 in Hector, 13 in Mecklenburg, 19 in the village, 25 in Covert, and 27 in Ulysses. So I think last month we had a Watkins call, this month we have a Lansing call. We're definitely seeing some. Yes.
Places high.
Yeah, and I believe that call was actually canceled. But that we ever got it in the first place, I think speaks to something sort of a shift somewhere. But that's really all for EMS aside from the executive session stuff.
We actually have need of due to the what I will refer to simply as the vagaries of civil service law.
Oh, so I was going to talk about that.
The reappointment?
Yeah,
I was just gonna say.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's actually. Yeah, no,
So due to the vagaries of civil service law, we have need of a motion that I would entertain to reappoint our existing EMS administrator, Joel Fay, as our EMS administrator. And so I would entertain that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments that are not executive session? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, got what you need there, Tam?
I do, thank you.
Okay. DPW, water, sewer, CPZR, and farmers market.
Sure, so nothing to update on the farmers market. On the CPZR front, we were meeting next Monday. I had said this last month that I anticipated us approving a draft. That will happen this month. I still anticipate it. I think we're getting there. However, we did actually release a draft out to the community. What the committee is working on right now is just kind of reordering and very small changes. So I didn't want to kind of hold that up. I wanted people to have a full month to be able to look at it before the state of the village, where we're going to hold some conversations around that. So in the meantime, what the board will formally approve it, I believe, on Monday, and then we can start talking about it as this board, at our next meeting and going on from there. There are some significant changes. There's an FAQ document that covers some of that. All that's on the website. So for folks that want to go look at that, or anyone on the board, it's all there. There's both like a clean draft with all the changes approved, as well as see all the messiness of all the changes that have been made, and the FAQ. So hopefully there's enough for everyone to dig into. And once it's approved, I'll have EDR get a copy that we can all work on collaboratively while they start kind of cleaning up the formatting. Let's see, the DPW water sewer. The thing I wanted to chat about there was potential water conservation pricing. So we made changes to water billing this past year. We're going to make some more changes this coming middle of the year. Both of those are based on a study done by Municipal Solutions that kind of helped us understand what our rates needed to increase to, so that we can cover the appropriate costs of water. As I think we all know, but just to say out loud, the water billing is split into two different types. Well, actually, really three types, but for this conversation, two. One is a flat rate for each individual customer, and one is a variable rate based on how much water you use. Typically, up until now, we've continued to have that as just a flat dollars per gallon or per 1,000 gallons used by any water customer. In doing some reading and some investigation, and recognizing that water is not a fully renewable resource, and that we kind of don't have a full sense of what our wells, how long they'll go, what the impact is. Thankfully, they are very stable right now, but who knows what the future might bring. I'm curious to hear if this board's interest in kind of a pricing scheme where, as you use more gallons in a failing period, that dollar cost per 1,000 gallons might increase. The way I'm kind of thinking of it is to start with, if you're using, the same as 50% of the rest of the village or less, nothing changes, everything's exactly the same. If you're using more than that, then we start adjusting the cost per 1,000 gallons up a little bit, and we can kind of play with what that little bit looks like. But the idea is to have it would be probably small, but a kind of incremental incentive to reduce your water usage and try and conserve water, just because we don't have a really good sense of like how, what kind of issues we might run into down the road in the future. I think it's kind of a best practice to use the financial structure to kind of encourage that. So I wanted to bring up the idea here, see if there's kind of any immediate, like, strong positive or negative reaction. This is all very kind of in the thinking early stages, but wanted to hear what people thought about it.
So you're thinking about setting that based on an average of what a resident uses and then increasing it?
Yeah,
there?
yeah, we would look at what's the kind of the, what does half of the village use? You know, and if you're using that much or less, then it would be the same that you're already paying, no different. And if you're using more than that, that's mostly gonna, I'm assuming a lot of that's gonna fall on either larger households or mostly commercial in my guess, but we could go back and look exactly which customers that's impacting. But half of the customers would pay a little bit more, and then, you know, we can kind of adjust it as we go. To see how much we want to push it and who are the really most egregious, I don't know, top water users, and kind of adjust it as we go.
How easily can we get data on users? Like, could we pull the highest and lowest user and get some kind of idea of distribution stuff? Because I
Yeah.
need to do it if we're like.
No, so I have that actually from the water study, and that's where I kind of based that spread, that like table I sent in the email is based, at least the breakpoints. You can ignore the like dollar number, that was kind of me just playing around with things, but the breakpoints, and I can even mention them now here. Come from that, so.
Like I might have gotten distracted by the dog.
That is fine. Yeah, and all of that is completely like, I'm just kind of playing around with. How do we want to think about it? Do we add, you know, the last thing I came around to was like. You know, take 10% and kind of add it as we go up, but anything's possible. Basically, I have done the math so that like if 50% of the village uses 5,000 gallons or less, so that could be a first break point. 90% of the village uses 10,000 gallons or less, so that would be another nice next point, break point, and then we can kind of go from there. And we can decide how many breakpoints we want. You know, do we make it 3 different price tiers, 5 different price tiers? We can kind of play around with those things, but the general concept is to drive this based off of the numbers. And it is worth saying, actually, just the way that we structure the cost, this really is directly the cost of just pumping and electricity to like pump and chemicals to treat the water. That's how we've split out the flat cost, is kind of the, even if you didn't pump a gallon, baseline cost is always going to be taken care of, and this is just the more we use it, the more it costs, the more we have to pay. So it really does kind of cover itself.
I don't think it's gonna go for so long. So I have a question, just to clarify.
Yeah.
So how would that work? Like Compass or an apartment building that has 6 apartments in 1 meter?
Yeah.
I mean,
So Compass will have individual meters, but an apartment building,
but they're, I mean, that's probably a year.
The plan is not to have.
Yes. Ooh, why not? It better be, because we ordered that. INH's direction. Why would you not have individual meters?
so.
Okay, it's a whole different
That's
topic,
a
but
different
anyway.
So. Do you know, for those situations, are they paying 1 base rate? They're paying 6 base rates? Then that was my assumption, is that we'd have to figure that out, but I would anticipate that being, if you've got 6 base rates, then you get 6 times, you know, or divided by 6 or whatever, you know, the way to kind of figure that out. It should be per kind of conceptual like dwelling. One question I do have for the water folk, people using the actual billing software is this even like reasonably feasible? If this is a nutty idea to actually implement, then.
No, it's totally. feasible.
Okay.
We can set up a rate chart is complicated or simple as we choose.
Okay.
But I can tell you, just from my share of being, since I've been back in October, I have never heard people complain so much about their water bills as they are. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
That $14 per billing period, or 6 billing periods annually. It's a good chunk of money, and there are people who are doing that, so I just.
Yeah. It's a good point. I mean, I long term, I could see this helping us reduce that per cost, because you've got some people paying more, therefore, in theory, some should be able to be paying less. But the other thing I'm hearing is that this might be an interesting idea for a different time when people are less concerned about current changes, because we're making a lot of changes already, and you want to kind of don't want to overburden people with too many changes simultaneously.
And other expenses are ridiculous. Groceries are just insane right now.
Yeah, I mean, this would be for people using over 5,000 gallons per 2 months, which is that's a lot. I don't think
Yeah.
most houses are gonna see that. It's more primarily gonna be on,
I think. So.
anyhow, exactly 50% of customers use that, based on the numbers that I have. But it's still well taken that, you know, some larger households or whatnot are gonna see a tip into that next structure, and that can be,
And those are the bigger families with more kids.
right.
Well, that was my question is. In theory, I like it, I like the encouraging the conservation. But what if, you know, a house is really. Stingy, but they have a bigger family. And they just end up using more water. People might make the argument that there's some sort of penalized for having more people. Even though they're very tight with their water usage, I don't know, maybe that would happen, maybe that's.
Yeah.
I just know is there any way to scale it?
I mean, we could, you know, I'm open to kind of any. Even the breakpoints I picked are kind of arbitrary. I'm curious about, the idea is interesting enough to me that it could make sense to start at like, only the top 10% of water users are gonna see a change. And maybe we leave it at that, and then, you know, we've kind of got the structure and the idea in place, but it's not gonna be. I would be really surprised if any household was in that top 10%. Compared to the commercial users that we have. So that could be,
Depends on the we might tell that running in it.
well, right,
So I don't have a strong feeling either way on the concept, but I would be really curious to see this data mined out.
Yeah.
And see what the revenue difference to the village would be, number one. And then number two, if we could look at the, you know, take a typical water bill in the 50th percentile, the 75th, the 90th, and the 99th, and see what the increase would be to that user in one particular bill. And then from there, when we see, if we see it's a huge increase to someone in the 87th percentile, then we need then I would want to go and look and see who is that hitting. You know, to Keith's point, if it's a large family, we probably do need to be sensitive to, you know, to that piece. So again, conceptually, I think it's fine to consider, but I am curious about the kind of the devil in the details of the data piece.
yeah, and I should have all of that data and be able to pull that sort of information. So if there's other questions people have around that, I think, I can't say exactly what periods I have here, but I think I have like 2021 data. But I could absolutely pull that sort of information. So if anyone has any other information or thoughts now, or, you know, over the next week or two, send them my way, and I'm happy to pull that together.
This wouldn't be the kind of thing we can do this year anyway, because we have another price increase coming mid-year, which we will not be delaying. So, you know, certainly this could be, if the numbers work into something this board decides to do, you know, 2024 would be a reasonable time to do it.
And then that's fine. I had thought it could be rolled into the change of the base this year, but if that, I'm hearing that that's kind of, it's getting too much already.
Well, I mean, the reality is, and we'll talk about this in State of the Village, the reality is we were supposed to have seen a pretty large increase 4 and 5 years ago that we put off. Right, so if now we have to stack increases for 3, 4, or 5 years, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Not saying it's pleasant, but it's reasonable. And our water fees are still well below Bolton Point and others. You know, there's a piper to be paid here.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem conceptually with stacking increases over the course of a few years.
Yeah. Well-
unpleasant as it can be. But just like we've held our tax rate flat for 4 years, we're not gonna do that forever. We can't hold water rates to be the lowest in the state forever. Not sure that we're still the lowest in the state, but we're pretty darn low.
I'll pull that information, based on just kind of what would it look like if the current users use the same amount and kind of used a different price sheet. And send that out, but I think overall, my sense at this point, I want to keep the conversation going, but this might be a thing better left for, like you're saying, 24 might make more sense, so.
It might take you that long to data mine everything.
I think I can have it by the end of the night if we did the rest of the meeting. It's just a spreadsheet. It's all right here.
I would be curious to see
Yeah.
that piece.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there a way, like similar to thinking about on the converse of increasing rate, is there a way to establish that you increase your uses over the course of 6 months of credit? But then allow the base rate to be reduced by some factor so that you get, what I mean, your next bill will see this reduction instead of penalized, so then it's.
You tell me.
I think if
I love the idea.
So it was legal as a utility.
I think, so my understanding as far as legality is we have flexibility as a utility to make a profit within reason, as any utility does, which is a bit unique in most of the things we talk about in the village, where it's you kind of have to cover the cost, but you can't be making a profit. So there is flexibility in something like this where you might charge people more for overuse or something.
Right.
Reducing price might be a little bit trickier. Though one thing I could play around with here, once we start looking at this, annual revenue is there an opportunity to drop the base rate for everybody by 10 cents? And then make it back,
Not like.
right?
Live your life as you have it and charge you.
Right.
Right. Well, the reason
If you're incentivizing, right,
Yeah,
for content.
it's softer.
it's certainly, I'm 100% agree. The reason I said it back to you is because is that a thing we can track it?
Yeah, track people's usage.
But like easily enough that we can then say, okay, these people opt into this rebate and whole thing.
Let's explore.
We are a minimum of 3 to 5 years away from even considering a water rate reduction. Under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay.
But knowing how to do it would be.
Right, so I think what could be interesting when I look at this revenue changes is, say if half the village is now gonna pay, 50 cents more a gallon for half of their water because of the way the rate works out. Does that mean the rest of the half of the village could do a little bit less? And then now we're starting to get more interesting because maybe some people really like that idea and we can keep it revenue neutral or even adjust it somewhat so that it's helping us get back out of this hole that we're kind of in the water right now. So I'll play some scenarios out, see what we get.
I'd really like to see the distribution. That would be. Just of who uses how much, because to me, the worst case scenario is if everyone uses under 5,000.
Right, so
and then we're mapping based on usage, then that means very, very few people on the upper end of that spectrum would be underwriting.
So
Decreases for the vast majority.
Right, so we have like almost 14,000 equivalent water, no, that's actually not the right way to do it. We have, call it 1,000 accounts, give or take ballpark. Half of those use 5,000 gallons or less. 90% of those use 10,000 gallons or less. So that's 900 use 10,000 gallons or less.
Can you break it out under 5,000 or is that just?
Sure. Oh, yeah, I can go more than that. Yeah. I mean, you tell me what you want to break, I guess I could just build a distribution of like every 10th percentile or something, make a graph and share it.
If it's not like a huge pain.
No, I mean, I have it right here, I just picked arbitrary box at 50%, 90%, 95 and so forth, so.
I don't know if it's helpful or not, but I think just that in the last 4 billion periods of consumption.
Okay. Then I'll see if I can plug that in, yeah.
I also want to say quickly that conceptually, I think it's a great idea. And then just become the question, how and when.
Well, I think we all recognize this is one of our most valuable village commodities, if not the most valuable. Yeah, we send it off for competition. How are we gonna do that? We want to do
I don't know if they've had it since COVID.
it? Oh, okay. But, you know, I guess. It sounds like I'm a little curious, like. Do we suspect there is abuse? Do we suspect that there's too much water being used, and if so. Is there, since it seems like there's a period of time here before we would consider. This change, which again, I think is a worthy endeavor. Is there room for, whether it's BTC or other people, volunteers, is there? Opportunity to just try to do advocacy around water usage in the village and help educate a little bit on, you know, this is not an infinite resource, like. Interlake dried up a couple summers ago, like. Just get people thinking about, you know, their water usage before we start slapping people on the wrist with fines, not fines, but.
Yeah.
So I see if that changes the numbers. I'm not overly optimistic that.
Yeah, I mean, I like a good PR campaign. I do think in general, you know, when people notice it, right? You leave a light on in your house, you don't think about it, but when the electricity bill comes, you start getting nervous about it. So I think there is something. I do anticipate this being helpful in that cause, but I'm also like the idea of kind of a soft sell first, for sure.
So there's two things that actually triggered in my mind what you just said, Keith. There's two things that actually like I didn't mean to mention. I just haven't. One is at Guy's suggestion, I'd like to draft kind of just a 1-page, I guess it could be 2-page newsletter style, but preferably 1-page informational letter to every water user. And then that would also go to any new resident that we find out about, or turn, you know, tenant changes the name of the water bill into their name kind of thing. And it would cover these things, you know, where do you get your water from? You know, 2 sentences about the village of Trumansburg as a water supplier. Here's how your bill is calculated. Here are your responsibilities. Here are the village's responsibilities. And as you can imagine, Guy's opinion is that the section on village responsibility should be relatively short. And the section on the homeowner responsibility should be relatively long, to include your pipe bursts on your side of the meter. You are paying full freight. There is no forgiveness policy because villages are not allowed to forgive anything. So check your meter, check your pipes, you know, in other words, home ownership comes at a price. And spelling that out in a way we never really have. In print to hand out to, you know, mail it to every water user once and then make it available to anyone. So that's kind of something that's sitting somewhere in my pile. And if we can draft something, that'd be great. Kind of part 2 to that is, since we are reaching kind of end of life cycle for the radio read meters, I'd love to see, and we can talk to Matt about this on our call. I'd love to see if there is grant money for, and I don't know enough about the technology, but if there's grant money for next gen smart meters. Because I know that, I think Bolton Point has them. I know that some water utilities can, the reads are all transmitted back to the headquarters, wherever it is. And they can track individual usage from there to the point where I've heard of people getting a notification that says, you know, your water usage seems to be awfully high this month. And sure enough, there's a leaky toilet that didn't fix, kind of thing. So I think that would be supremely expensive for us to try to buy. But if we could get grant money for the meters, then that would allow us to do some things, particularly around notification. Monitoring of usage. If we get into incentivizing usage, we can be tracking things a little bit better. And there's a lot of great money being thrown around. the omnibus package that was signed 2 weeks ago has more water and sewer money. We always seem to forget about fire and EMS, but there's always water and sewer money. So if we can tap into that somewhere, no pun intended. I think that would go a long way to some of these initiatives too, so. So if I forget, remind me, Matt.
Yeah, I've got that.
See if that's something we can pursue.
All right, well, I will pull together a whole informational packet for y'all. Take it from there. Let's see, everything else. Well, I think that is it for me. DPW water sewer super. Yep, hit them all. All right, that's all I got.
All right, anything else for Ben? Okay, police and ETC.
I'll begin with police. 111 calls for service in December for assisting outside the village. Criminal investigations included a weapons investigation. Some use of a BB gun, trespass, 2 domestic investigations, 2 harassments, 1 dispute / disorderly conduct investigation, and 2 motor vehicle crash investigations. Continuing to had a meeting with Chief Nelson last week and kind of finally had time to sit down and lay out enhancements to the police presence on our village website. So now I have a pretty good idea of what he'd like up there. And so I can start working on that. Other pressing issue is we officially don't have any crossing guards. Our former crossing guard has officially moved out of Trumansburg. And so Chief has been doing the morning and afternoon shift. So we're continuing to look for someone's to fill that position. I've started to make contact with some of the PTOs in the school district just to see if there might be a way to get people involved. But yeah, that's a pressing need. And just for those listening at home or in attendance or around the table looking to make a couple $100 a week. The morning shift is basically 7:40 to 8:05, and afternoon shift is 2:45 to 3:10. I might have to put myself into service, but we'll see. Might get in the way of some things, but so yeah, so we'll continue to try to spread the word on that and see if we can attract some new crossing guards. I think I have some stuff that's probably more executive session related. I didn't know, I saw the postcards, so I did have a question of if we thought there would be room on the state of the village agenda for a police update, only to talking with Chief, thought it might be about time to give a more kind of comprehensive update on the reform plan. So I was curious if that, if not, we can kind of do that as part of, a LEAPS meeting or something like that, where we can invite more people, but
Do we have department updates on
It's the first thing on
On the
the
card?
postcard is department.
Oh,
is it? Sorry, I totally missed it. Okay, then there will
I
be.
don't know that each department, in the past, we kind of tried to fill 5 or 10 or 15 minutes with each department. I don't envision us doing that this year. So if there are departments where there's not much to say, then that'll leave time for departments where there's a lot to say.
Okay, great. Sorry, I don't know how I missed that. I have bad color vision, maybe it threw me off. In terms of ETC, we had a meeting on this past Friday. We recapped Winterfest. All reports on merchants were very happy with the turnout. We will be pursuing a larger tree next year, hoping to bump it up to 15 feet. some other ideas around Winterfest and how to, kind of, I think kind of the general sentiment on the committee is for the coming year, not necessarily think about more things to do, but how to kind of bolster or enhance the events that we have been doing, or how to support the events that the village has been doing, such as Winterfest, the crit, some other things like the May Day 5K. There was a lot of conversation about whether or not to. So I think I told the board a month or so ago that I had a lengthy conversation with the folks from Bike Walk Tompkins that would like to bring Streets Alive to Trumansburg. Ideally, they think that would be done well in conjunction, maybe with something else going on. They mentioned Porch Fest. Committee didn't really like that idea, ETC that is. And so we also thought that maybe the May Day 5K, which is actually in June this year, could be a good combination. Maybe, with everything happening at the school, maybe Streets Alive can happen on Wake Street. So going to kind of bring that back to them, them being Bike Walk Tompkins, and kind of get their opinion of that. It's a little tough because we got to find a time that's good for the village, but also isn't too close to the two they put on in Ithaca every year. So that's kind of what we're trying to negotiate. One thing regarding Winterfest, and Ben, this is something maybe we can talk about, or we can all talk about. There's a strong belief that we can probably should streamline communications, or in terms of, maybe not streamline is the right word, but have more of a communication plan. So the problem is we think too many people are talking to the DPW group. And so if there's a way to basically set a chain of command, like, okay, the committee, I'm part of the committee, we talk as a committee and all the volunteers with Winterfest. And then, I can say to you, here's what the committee is looking for DPW to do as part of Winterfest. And so they don't keep getting kind of ad hoc requests from people that walk by.
Oh, so point person that says, I take care of this.
Yeah, so that they know that, Dusty and the crew know that they're just out in the street one day. They don't have to do what somebody tells them they need to do. That kind of thing. Yeah, so we can talk about that. The Green Space Committee will be meeting soon, I think, to discuss village green spaces. And another thing ETC really would like to put kind of some more time and money into is marketing around village events. I think that's a really neglected area of support for events. And so maybe working with the chamber and some other entities to just do a better job of getting the word out, and even paid advertising for some of the events that, again, continue to go on, that we can help bolster. As part of the ETC, we also talked about taking care of T-Berg. A lot of concern over our ability to water all of our planters. We won't have the mescals and their cart riding around to handle all of that. And so it's 20 to 30 planters that need to be watered 1 to 2 times a week. The thought was maybe the local businesses that wanted, or that are blessed to have planters in front of their establishments, could help with the watering, but apparently that has not gone well in the past. Has not been a.
Maybe we can do an adopt a planter program, where people want to adopt one that they just take care of over the summer. Just like we adopt a Highlander. Yeah, I might adopt a
I'll
planter.
take a couple,
I might adopt a
Yeah.
planter, sure.
and you could put your name, we can put your name.
Lunch porch, I'm just.
Again, just trying to be sensitive to, DPW and village resources, to expect that to be part of their job, I think is not necessarily fair. So that's kind of the main focus of, I think, our work with taking care of T-Berg, is to kind of come up with a good solution there. Marcia already has an idea, so we're on our way. Uh, There was some talk as part of that. Is there a way we could purchase or rent a golf cart? What would that look like? Would the town of Ulysses chip in to help with something like that? Is there anything else, Jess?
Are they-
Right.
I know what they use now. Is that their own thing that they use? Yeah, that's what I thought.
So we did talk about like, in the past, we had some of the owners were very good at helping with vendors and some were, because this year you forget about them, but
Right.
maybe there's a way we could have an agreement, like, hey, if you like this and you can sign an informal like. Act or like there's ways to make and adopt vendors. I think that.
I think if you-
That way,
Combine the two, so you have businesses adopt a planter,
right.
so it's like.
And there might be somebody that wants to putz with a planter, just one planter in town for a day or whatever. I would do that.
Potentially maybe an internally when the summer before terms, that might be an option. to explore. The only thing I wanted to add was, when we talked about streets alive, didn't we see that maybe it was an opportunity to talk about public safety?
Yeah.
Also, like
Yeah.
sort of important, some
Yeah.
community outreach. that.
Yeah, because we do the crosswalk education, stuff like that too. Yeah.
We also wanted to ask if the mayor had any specific.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's up here.
How many planters are there? 35, did you say?
20 to 30.
Oh, 20 to 30.
And with the events marketing, usually like tourism marketing, recognizing that was one of the major sort of missions, of the community in general is to bring more attention to our area.
No, I think it's primarily just directly interfacing with the known events throughout the year and offering any assistance that we can to make sure it's, whether it's, it's Porch Fest, it's the Crit, it's Winterfest. I would even throw in the fair with respect to the parade every year, just making sure that the organizations that are putting those events together, if there is a need from the village, that they know they have someone directly other than me to reach out to help coordinate those perennially well-attended occasions. That's really it. Anything else that comes up that's useful is just kind of great. That's how the committee can be helpful in additional ways. But remember, the genesis of ETC was we didn't have a chamber for a year plus. So now that the chamber is back, coordinating with them, certainly is part of that effort.
I would also just throw in that the Rotary had a ridiculously successful doctorate last year, so the most staff they had. They've done it, and we're really looking forward to piggybacking on that. We really like to piggybacking the yard sale last year, however, the water flow was a concern for them. So they like to accept it earlier, but that was a success of ETC that this little thing happened. Great, we're not doing anything more than connect them with the system. It's great. So.
It's a fine line around here between not enough water flow and it being frozen. That is it. I yield.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Sure.
You mentioned the green space committee under events and tourism, so how does that work for tree people and what the responsibilities? Or the subcommittee or what is it?
That's a good question. I'll let Jessica answer that.
So the green team is just an exploratory project group that's Jen had his first meeting ever this month, and the genesis, and actually put about this briefly today, it begins to first like explain what are the green spaces owned by the village and how can we maximize the fortune comprehensive plan. So it's an exploratory team that's but as part of it. Does that make sense? But, or does it answer your question?
It is my question.
The idea too is that then, once we have a nugget of a concept, to make sure that that becomes, communication platform with the community, because it is based on the mission of the conference. And how can we use our business as a community? But it's just this tiny little nugget that we do. First, like, where are the great spaces? Then let's bring in a merger of people who want to give feedback about how they'd like to see their public spaces. Yeah. Great questions. Yeah.
Let's hold up a second, Bruce. We got public comment coming right up. Okay, we just got done with ETC, treasurer, deputy treasurer, treasurer's office.
Okay.
Jeff, please. If you're good, Jessica, start doing the charter report.
So should I people start up with the progressive referendum that we need to do for Sol's data, which is in the Dropbox? Just to recognize that is the sum that it is that we need a permissive referendum. Appropriating $5,658 from the EMS maintenance agreement reserve to pay for the annual zones auto service agreements.
So I would make that motion.
Second.
Motion in a second. Comments?
There isn't a lot of background, but just to know that this is budgeted for and we had to move it into a reserve so that we didn't have to pay it because they're not annual. So this allows it to be a regular annual payment into the reserve and it comes out sort of bizarre chunks. What seems like random basis only because I never keep it in my bank account, I don't remember.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, so beginning tomorrow, I'm going to step into like functioning primarily as the treasurer with Vicki by my side, which means that my focus being, let's make sure I'm doing all of those things with her. So that means if you're going to communicate to the treasurer, you could also see me as deputy treasurer until such point where I assume full visibility to the treasurer's knowledge and coming up. So that would be great. Also then giving you an awareness of where my focus would be. We anticipate after the 2021-22 audit to arrive in January, which the treasurer's desk will review. And then Wayne will be coming to the February regular meeting to review that audit. We are reconciled for all months, all accounts, bank statement months to date. The December statements just came in the mail today, Victoria. So we can work on that. So that means reconciled through November, which leads into at the moment we all been waiting for the mentioned budgets, which actually I'm directly finding very fun this year. So when you start to look at that, you recognize that so far any expenditures for projections based on expenditures through November, right? That's so it's in the Dropbox. You may have seen it there. As we work on it at the end of the day, we will update it. So at the end of the business day, if we made any changes, we'll make sure we update the budget in there. They are already entering the expenses through May of 2022 are there and accurate. And then some, I think we're feeling pretty good about the anticipated expenses through 2023. Though that of course will require input from department heads, which has been solicited. And so Tuesday, which is tomorrow, the updated budget sheets will be distributed to the department heads via email. With the request that they be returned back to the treasurer's desk the January 18th, so that they can look at it, know more or less their expectations, so that we can present that updated sheets from the department heads to this board for the second. And Vicki works today on all personnel related budget lines, but again, a target to have the personnel expenditures is for the second month. January. Does anybody have students?
Remind me what our budget meeting dates are that we've scheduled.
They're going to be
the budget, the regular board meetings and the second meetings. And I'm going to send one doodle request out for one in the March, so we should have 6 budget meetings. Including this, I included this one, so there should be 5. And you asked me to send out one other one,
So you're intending to have a budget meeting at our second meeting this month.
yes. We did the first one. Which I thought we should.
Sounds big.
I'm just thinking about other things we're gonna have on our plate.
Okay. Because I kind of forewarned all the department heads.
And that's fine. February, so let's take this opportunity. February the 27th, I will not be here.
I will not be here.
Second.
So we have no meeting February the 27th because you have no quorum.
Can we reschedule a meeting for February?
We need another, we need another
Okay,
budget meeting. I'd like it to make it budget only in February. Is anyone not available Monday the 20th,
at the holiday, I believe it's
The holiday,
Tuesday the 21st?
that's fine.
for the 21st,
Keith?
for the rest. No, the week. Okay.
That's not winter break, is it?
It sure is.
It is.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Yes, that is right.
February 20, I'm available.
There's a no.
Well, let's do it this way. Vicky, if you would send around
Okay,
a doodle poll for everyone, everyone, please fill it out as soon as you can. See if everyone's available.
okay,
Let's run the poll for a date. The week of the 6th,
okay,
the week of the 20th.
okay. And the first week of March?
Nope.
No.
I'm not gonna be here first week of March.
Just-
The week of March, you're gone the week of March 6th.
Yes, I am.
So the week of March, another meeting, the week of March 13th.
Yep, can do that.
We have a meeting that,
I understand.
oh, another,
See if there's another date
okay,
for
okay,
that week as well as the week of the 20th. Just to make sure we have enough dates in here,
okay,
because the possibility of, and I'm not saying we'll schedule all those meetings, but I want to see people, folks' availability.
okay,
Because if we end up with other things that take up meeting time, I don't want to give short shrift to the budget.
so the plan. Is still, I guess, that all the department heads will have their budgets by, and it really just affects. Police and DPW will discuss ours and code. They'll have them by tomorrow. And I asked them to, prior to contact you guys, to set up meetings with you about going over them. So I will have them back in our hands before the January meeting. So even if we can't go over them at the January meeting, you guys will have them fairly, the budget will be fairly completed by that date. We'll have all the personnel, meaning salaries, FICA, Medicare, their medical, and retirement, and there'll be very few lines that, you know, you get into like storm sewer, the things that you guys generally do, and some of the weather. That's our plan.
Is the farmer's market been in the loop on some of this?
They will. I will send it out to everybody. There's individually, I'm gonna do every department head tomorrow.
Great.
Yes, yep, they'll be aware. And if the farmer's market has to go a couple days after, because I'm wherever their meetings are, that's okay. We'll have the, you know, we know about what their budget is going to be. Later that, I worry about DPW increase. And Gordon's given us some directive in regards to like personnel for those, you know, with those two departments.
EMS fire is done.
Uh-huh,
We don't
fire is
have to
done.
Worry about anything. Well, there is some stuff with, yeah,
It's not,
okay, well.
sorry,
with-
that's
with
not even
EMS.
close. Not even in the zip code of Beta. No.
Right, yeah, yippee.
Just move stuff to Dropbox as you change it.
We, and
We
so.
can keep up.
Okay, I'm trying to suggest in the loop about things, I'm trying to clean up things, so so far, so good, it's okay, it's okay. Anyway, so if you guys have any issues about budget stuff, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm hoping it goes fairly smoothly.
Hey, any other comments or questions for the treasurers? Okay, moving along to clerk's office.
So everyone got a draft of the postcard. I think Ben was going darker, but we wanted to get back from. I've made the font change. I'm not stuck on red, but I like the red because I think it won't get thrown away as quickly as the green or blue. But if everyone's good with the draft, I'd like to send that to the print shop so that I can pick it up Wednesday or Thursday and get it this week.
I vote for the green and black. I think that was way easier for me to read. Sorry, Tam.
I don't care.
Two for green, one I don't care. Keith, do you care green or red?
Indifferent. Clearly, I can't read anyway.
Clearly.
Already. Well, if that first, if department updates had been in red.
Yeah, I don't know if that was if that's against the color by default.
All the boxes, whatever color you want, I will make it that color.
I don't have a preference.
Whatever color this is, I probably won't see that. So I should.
Yeah.
You'll be there. I'll be there. Don't play this enough.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go with the village of Chamber green. And get that out this week.
I think you would love it. Yeah, I'll get it out I'll get it out before Friday. I believe, on the agenda and under my department. We have an email that was sent to us from a village resident who has offered to do the cleaning for us for Village Hall. We've not had a cleaner since the end of October. Susan Wayne sent a letter or email, basically quoting us $25 an hour. She anticipates it taking somewhere in the vicinity, I think she said 4 to 6 hours to start with, twice a week. And then once everything is caught up and she has a good sanitizing plan and a good cleaning plan, it would go 1 day a week. In order to, so Chief Joe and I talked a little bit, he talked about having our cleaner bonded. I expressed to him that generally means we pay a lot more for service. So Jessica and I talked and agreed that we would be perfectly comfortable with the cleaner coming in while we were in the office. That way nobody's there on off hours and we don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So with the board's permission, I would like to hire Susan Wayne at $25 an hour. Beginning immediately to get back to our current schedule. Next, actually, I took care of the reappointment for the CMS. And the last thing I have to report on is I have started upstairs in the records room for shredding, which is going to be on the 30th. Again, if you've got stuff in the shredding, please bring it to me before. We'll work with the DPW to get everything down here on ground level so that on the 30th we can have the truck and get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible. I anticipate our focus for 40 to 50 boxes. After going up there today and pulling stuff out of binders and things that are up there, I think we really close to it. But we have not shredded some 18 or 19 because of COVID. So it's time. It's really important. So at this point, the upstairs meeting room, otherwise known as the mayor's office, really isn't there for anybody's stay at all costs. I think that's what I have.
Found our 1994 best mover in Emily or whatever it was.
We have one. We-
A few cents, but
What's that?
I mean, now it's like,
yeah. So,
So my deputy clerk Pat would like to report that water bills went out successfully on January 3rd, that Dusty and I have isolated a great communication process through an Excel sheet, so we've isolated difficult accounts to read and then to look at the usage to flag it, so you have much less, hey, this looks wacky, hey, this looks wacky from clients. Yeah, go water. That's it.
so we had need to hire someone,
Susan.
Susan Wayne, please.
spelling of the last name.
WAYN.
So I would entertain a motion to hire Susan Wayne to clean the village main office building at the rate of $25 an hour, effective immediately. If someone would like to move that. So,
Second.
a motion and a second. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, anything else from the clerk's office?
Maybe you tried to sanitize again.
All right. 18th anniversary last week.
Happy anniversary.
Nice.
How many?
18. That started really good.
Okay, item number 7, old business. Several months ago, we received communication from Tompkins County Assessment. And we talked about it briefly, and then I went back for some clarification on some things. This particular communication, it is in the Dropbox. The original memo is 7A, the first 7A, and the second 7A is an email between myself and Jay Franklin regarding the increased allowable exemption scales for senior residents of the village. The question that I had asked for clarification on was the maximum allowable exemption is for folks with income of $50,000 or less. At that level, they would get a 50% reduction on assessment. And then it phases out upwards from there. The county is using the $35,000 number, which is roughly what we figured would have been the rate if we had adjusted for inflation since the last time this level was changed in 2007. The other reason that assessment was strongly encouraging the legislature to only do 35,000 was that the workload at 50,000 would have allowed for 1,200 new applicants countywide, which would have been a staffing issue.
45 minutes a piece, wasn't that what it said?
But roughly an hour each. So assessment would like to be able to phase their way into the maximum if that is where the county decides to go. For the village, he says that's not an issue. We can do either one. He says that we currently have 24 seniors who qualify. We go to 35,000 as the number, we would have 32. So we would be picking up 8. So it's up to us. We don't need anything more than a resolution since we already offer this exemption. We have the opportunity to increase the income limitation associated with this particular existing exemption. Say that 5 times. So I'll open it up to the board to consider. Do we want to go to 35,000, which do we want to A, do nothing, B, go to 35,000, which is kind of where it appears others are going, including the county itself, or do we want to go to a higher number?
I think I'm in favor of counties keeping in line with the inflation numbers, so we're keeping it functionally the same.
I agree.
And it'll be predictable and. Maybe step into it. You know, the higher number down the line.
I agree.
Just trying to see if there's any kind of rough numbers on. Distribution of income by age sort of thing, but.
We don't have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, census kind of has it, but it's. You get a number which is like,
What do they consider senior, 65 and older?
it's a good question. The census breaks down at 65. I don't know what that for this period was 60 is.
Oh geez, I'm almost there.
But you get things like an estimate of 33 people with a margin of error plus minus 32, and then you're like, I don't.
There's definitely one.
There's there's definitely one person. So, yeah, I'm in line, happy to go in line with. What's going on around us?
And we can certainly change this at any time, as I say, it is by resolution. And we're below the maximum, so if we feel like we want to increase it, we certainly can. Is there any need or desire for any additional information before we?
No, I was just wondering what the age was. You said you didn't know what.
I believe it's-
It is
I believe
65.
it's 65 for assessment.
And I would say, I think we should, it seems like we're all pretty on board, and I think Jay is generally pretty open, so like if you've had a question.
Sure, if we had additional questions, we could certainly ask them before we do anything, or after we do it, or anytime.
Can I ask a budgeting question?
Yeah.
Is this going to go back?
No.
Is that going to affect our number, our property tax number? Okay.
It's total change of 582,000 in assessed value out of 140 million.
The only thing I'm thinking now is for two people living in a residence at $50,000 or under that are senior level, 65 years of age. And you said raising the threshold wouldn't affect.
Going to 35 doesn't affect us much.
Right.
I don't have numbers
For 50,
Jay random for 35 for me.
well, like you said, we can change it at any time.
Is it set for house? I didn't read it that carefully. Is it
Set for household size.
Yeah.
No, it is.
Yeah, that was another thing I was curious about whether, it's a difference. If there
There's an application. It goes hand in hand with Star, but is separate from Star,
are,
where you do have to disclose household income.
and then I'm just wondering, what if you have two elderly people at 50,000, but they also have like maybe a handicapped child that lives with them that.
You don't double up exemptions. You're either getting a breakout, you're either getting a reduction of your assessed value. Or you're
Okay,
not.
so it's not based on household size at all. Okay. Just the value of the
I
property.
didn't realize that.
Period.
You can't stack. You can stack these, so if you have like the veterans exemption, you can't also use.
Okay, you can stack multiple, you can stack different exemptions,
Oh,
but you don't stack the same exemption.
oh, right, okay.
You don't get 50% of 50% of 50%.
Some point we're paying you back for your house.
Well, no, because it's percent.
Fine. Fine, man.
Okay, half a penny.
All right, then I would entertain a motion, and Tammy will have to draft something up to send to Jay. But I would entertain a motion to increase the Village of Trumansburg exemption scale to a proposed $35,000 of household income for the already allowable real property tax law, section 467 exemption that the village currently offers.
So moved.
Did you say 470 or? Section 470?
467. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any additional questions or conversation?
And this is a separate application that somebody has to fill out and apply for? And where do they get those applications?
County assessment.
Okay,
Hypothetical.
okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they are available online too. Any additional questions or conversation? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
One related thing just to mention, I did see mention that. Something that a sign, governor local sign allows for an exemption for volunteer firefighters. You just might want to ask Jay about what that looks like too.
Yes.
You already know.
So volunteer firefighter and ambulance workers. Partial exemption was signed. However, the law requires the local municipality and or county assessment to promulgate rules for how they will verify the volunteer status of those folks, and Jay is currently trying really hard to figure out how to do that. Once he has figured that out, particularly for an agency like our volunteer fire company, which spans 3 counties, who don't necessarily coordinate that rules promulgation. Once we know how to do it, we'll certainly take it up for conversation. That will require a local law because it's a new exemption. It would only apply to volunteers that live in the village. However, they could potentially volunteer somewhere else, which is part of it.
Right, yes.
Any other items of old business? Do we have any items of new business? All right, we are up to our second public comment period. Bruce, you have some comment. Now the floor is yours.
The February, what is that mean, the firehouse for?
February 4th, 9 a.m. It's a Saturday. That's our annual State of the Village meeting where we go over kind of 2022 brief year in review, 2023, what kind of big projects are on our plate. And we'll give a departmental, I don't have the postcard in front of me, Tammy. We'll give a kind of an overview of the each department. We'll talk about the status of where things stand with the zoning review and revision. We're going to talk about Camp Barton, I hope,
Water rates and sewer.
and water rates, which will be increasing again mid-year, and a change to our sewer law, which has not been looked at since the 60s.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, because it's when you say contract, so it's two of the things. All the same things, try to figure out what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, the other thing, yeah, the water and stuff. Tammy, I'm just wondering, because I keep harping on it, is my scanner died, so I can't scan my bill. But it would be nice to just send a text message with the rate usage. And that would be helpful. I haven't looked at mine for a couple of months.
Okay, is that a cell phone text or?
The cell, what,
Yeah.
the cell phone that I have been upgraded. So anyway, it would be just email.
Just me? Okay. we can-
That's way. And yeah, another thing I was thinking about was flowers and stuff. Is that when the business is put through out in front of Lopez and that. they're at head level. Not above your head. And that would be something to look into, because I kind of, when I first got out there, and I could even hear my class plus there or something else.
So the ones that we're talking about first.
Hey, yeah, I know you're talking about the other one, but, and I just got to say.
Oh,
And the other thing, when looking at the, zoning. And I've mentioned this for years. And Bill Coker, when I was board, and the parking lot got built. I got expanded, he was giving my permission on buying that property. And now I've lost, well, supposedly, I have to talk to the new guy, because they go into that, nonprofit thing, and it sounds like that they know what they did. Because my last email when I sent to the village, they rushed to roll over equipment, put it under a skid, and took off by the time I got out the door. And that was when they were working in the parking lot, cutting down trees. That, and what I'm saying here is, now, is according to the zoning, is you're supposed to have public hearings, you're supposed to post it, not elementary. I can't see. Tom Peretti, when they dumped the dirt and destroyed my fencing, he said, Bruce, you didn't see him do it. Bill Kohlberg is still is there. All my fencing around that yard where he built that parking lot, he took it out. And without Bob Brown, you can ask him. He basically, one of his people in his apartment, he told me, hey Bruce, can I take your fencing down so my apartment, the tenants can walk across the side? So that damage is still there, it's still evident. I only got one bowling. Because Ringer, when he first built in, he used every single bird home ball that's blowing. And then got another company to enlarge it. But what I'm saying is on the other side where they got the two dumpsters, can't imagine why they were good on my old property. That's what I'm trying to make. They paved it, they filled it in. And when you see this environmental impact, was there any studies done on it? No. Was I informed? No. And the thing is the tenants even next door complain about this, the smell from the dumpsters. And rats keep coming to mind. But does anybody care about the environmental impact of it? Oh, and James, the person that you hang out with down at the garage, he witnessed them dumping their cooking one in the lawn in the yard. So all I'm saying is, when you start talking about these things, and these people seem to openly do it, and people watch them do it, I called the health department about that, don't gonna do it, but I only did a month ago. But what I'm saying is that when is somebody going to ask my opinion on all these projects that you want to save the environment, but my next door neighbors have been studying this for you. And so it's just, I want to respect. Yeah, and I mentioned building and saying things, but that says, you can't go sign people. You put signs up, you can say this and that. I never get informed about anything, it's just done. And it's usually done when I'm done visiting the farm. But that's a point I want to make about this. And the new owners in the property that Bill sold, they did the same thing. And all these properties that I'm talking about, both sides of you, have the same attorney. The Albany's law. And they are friends with Matt Travis, who I bought the property from, and he changed the property lines 3 years later. And but I did an exploration on the FAT attorney. That's all. I walked in the night tracks, I'm surprised you're even talking to me. Number two, after that, his wife Carol came up to my house and found it in my face. It says, how dare you, this is going to be cut by Paul pictures off. And I looked around for abstracts in my property. None exist. And there's more details, so like I'm saying, is I at least appreciate a little bit of respect that when you're making these laws, you know, try to obey them for everybody. And not just chosen few. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I appreciate it. The thing is, this morning, the park and ride, because I'm on the board for the advisory board for the transit system. And we had a meeting this afternoon, I got a long meeting. But this tonight, when I picked up or I met the driver down at Truman for school, when we went into the parking lot, he said there was a lot of room to move around, and he didn't have to back up or turn around, so I wasn't sure between this morning, when I was with the driver, and was very careful in having back up and move around, but I guess DPW or somebody, and I guess they have it down at the fairgrounds, but they moved them up to the farmers market in the park and ride. And the transit system, 3 times a day, I have to go into the park and right this morning and last several weeks, they couldn't turn around, and especially when the snow was there, it was worse. And they fear backing up, running into cars parked. But tonight, Ray asked, or I asked Ray, and Ray said, all the buses, all the trucks or whatever are far enough away. But that's a thing that we've got for the future, because as long as the transit system exists, they kind of use the farmers market grounds for the parking lot. And so it's just a point of where they want to store their vehicles, or at least put them in a distance for a transit bus to possibly fear running over people toward cars. But that was thanks for letting me say that.
You're welcome.
I think I mentioned it first. I was saying.
It's like redirect.
Yeah, we'll keep it at Bruce. We'll.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted that help.
We'll definitely keep an eye on that down at the park and ride. The zoning public hearing, we have not had any zoning public hearings.
Yeah.
So we'll be sure and make sure that you're notified when those hearings are scheduled.
Yeah, because in the past, well, like I said, when you hired Tom Myers, so I was denied the hearing on that. He took it straight to the court, and he violated the law. He's not because I even quoted it to him. But like I say, those things are going on, but.
Yeah, we'll certainly make sure you're notified of our
Yeah,
next
yeah.
public hearings for the zoning.
Yes, because especially next door and that, but it's that's already been done. But the thing I fear about on the paved part, because the last one of the village had wiped out buildings in my house before I belonged, before I didn't get touched. With the new paved area and the slope of right straight down is in the future. Whenever we get the next big rainstorm, there's a possibility that it could actually damage the house. So, it's just a thought. But they only occur 100 years.
So they say.
Yeah. Don't predict it, because, that environmental green thing, they did a study starting in 1950. But there's a 60-year cycle. 1950 started the cooling period, so 1980 was the warming period. This one, I noticed that because people you hired out of Syracuse, they're kind of starting to take a cold period. There's a 60-year cycle, and there's a lot of good weather reports people. But anyway.
Yeah. Where's me?
Yeah. I was thinking that they want to move back to the lost direction.
Good night, Bruce.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce.
Have a good evening.
Good evening, have a good night. Okay, I see Nancy. Nancy, did you have something for public comment period?
I think that's no, like no. That's that. I think that's no.
That is thumbs down. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters from a number of departments as well as collective bargaining subject to the Taylor law.
Regretfully moved.
Regretfully seconded.
All in favor?
Thank
We are in executive session.